Over the last year, my mother and my great-aunt Patience have been creating a book out of Patience's memoirs. She's 87, and she had a huge life. Observing the process of putting this together into a book has really been captivating. It changes the way you look at someone. You know, if one person's story can be this amazing, I mean, there's got to be more of those out there, and it's like you're treasure hunting for people's life stories. It makes you more of a finder instead of a listener. Opens your mind. Makes you think.
Richard and Johnny and I were born in Paris during the Roaring '20s. This is my mother, a young actress. She was far from a nun, bless her heart. But she was really gung-ho to be somebody other than a little girl from the Bronx.
Alright, who's this?
This is my father.
Mm-hmm.
A very adventurous photographer.
So tell me, what kind of photography was he doing?
Anything that he wanted to. He really had fun.
Who is this?
This is a photograph Papa took of Fred Astaire and his sister in our studio in Paris. And I got to dance on Fred's shoes, as a matter of fact. A little waltz around the studio. Charlie Chaplin in the studio. Well, he was the most famous clown in the world, but he was quite grumpy and didn't really like children. Pavlova was a beautiful Russian lady, the most famous ballerina of Papa's time. She was a lovely woman, and she is also very fragile and very strong at the same time. And I so much wanted to be like her. And for a few years, I was. Wonderful thing she did with me was to let me put on all her ballet shoes Papa had placed around her stool. When we left Paris and went to Germany, being on the road made us grow up pretty fast. There were no rules, there was no available food. Sometimes there was no discipline. Mama wasn't aboard. She hadn't left Paris yet. Everywhere we went in Germany, people were so darling and so amazed at this crazy man with a camera and 3 children and a dog. In Russia, we went down to our cabin, which is called the dacha, and had a wonderful summer. And we swam without any bathing suits and drank little sips of vodka ourselves and picked daisies. It was idyllic. We didn't really know that there was a terrible starvation going on because the Russians always dance and sing. It's in their blood. And then there was Olga. I made a friend, and she was German girl, and her sisters, whom I would lose before I left Russia. Papa said she had been taken away. She and her sisters and mother and father. I didn't quite know what that meant. All I knew is that she wasn't my friend anymore, and I was broken-hearted. My own personal tragedy. My first tragedy. I have seen people on the highways of America fleeing. I've seen people in Russia fleeing. I didn't forget any of the people like that. Women carrying babies, you know, in America. In America, imagine. The image of that still lingers. You know, you don't lose those images. I met a lot of famous people with my father, photographing them. Suddenly we were famous too, and it was our turn to shine. And we did it pretty well, and we were good-natured. We were fresh and courageous, and made 2 more valiant attempts to write a second and third book. I was born a reporter, and it was not only because of my father, it was because I felt that way. Patty cake, you are a sponge, is what he said. I was always curious. I wanted to know who everyone was. I wanted to know what they ate, who was walking down the mountain, who was riding in that car. If someone's coming down the lane, I want to know who he or she is. I'm like a dog. I can sense it. I am a dog, partly. When Richard came to Redding, he was taken by the beauty of this magnificent panorama of mountain life. And this is where I am living now with my niece, his daughter, Jenny. After a year, I now have many friends. Many of them are children whom I really admired, and I admired the parents. And now I'm in love with everybody. And now I'm in love with the mountains. Now I know what it is to look at a mountain. I know I've talked a lot about myself, and I've shown you a lot about myself, but I am absolutely sure that you will also see yourself in me. We're all the same, I promise. Each generation goes bye-bye. Everyone should leave a trail of their being. Not the kind that Hansel and Gretel did. I want you to tell your story, even if you don't do it for a book, or a movie, or a play. Don't think you would be spilling anything out that would be hurtful. If I can do it, you can do it. You really will feel much better and perhaps go and climb a mountain. Do something unusual, like singing, romping around in your garden, climbing a tree, planting rutabagas, in order to empty out all your hurts and all your joys. Thank you for your words. I love words.
What do you take from sharing your story? What do you feel from that?
I feel much more adventurous and hopeful. Everything comes alive in me, and I relive what I see. I also like it when people talk about what they see out loud.
Well, this has been fun.
Yeah, oh, it's been hell.
I can make a movie, you can make a movie. In this short film, if it made you fall in love with Patience, not to worry. She, like her childhood hero, Anna Pavlova, she is fragile, but she's very, very strong. So I have no doubt you'll be seeing a lot more from her soon. And now that she knows how easy it is to capture her on film, I'm sure that she and Paul will have a YouTube channel up very soon. I also look forward to having her barcoded at MIT so that her story can be displayed in a word cloud with all the techies in Boston. So many things in our world have gotten more complex, but capturing and sharing stories is one that's actually gotten much easier, with the exception of writing a book. That's still very slow. But many of us carry the tools to record these stories with us all the time. We made this video on the fly using an iPhone and a camera that's also a video camera, and capturing interviews with patients in parking lots and waiting rooms and in a few only more slightly staged settings, and putting it together on a computer with the movie-making application that came with the computer. We can't all expect to make personal documentaries on a par with Ken Burns or Mark Dadigan or Toby McLeod and Jessica Abbe, all beautifully shot and painstakingly planned and researched. But we can aspire to be more like one of my heroes, Alan Lomax, who used simple recording equipment and preserved an astounding amount of indigenous American music just by going into the fields, going into even prisons, taking laborers, and searching out people on their front porches. Paul picked that up in his theme of treasure hunting for stories, and Patience said herself during one of our rehearsals that elders are still here, we are still treasures, pick them up. She also said communication builds valuable relationships, and this is especially true for youth. So I hope to see all you high schoolers out there with your mobile devices pestering your parents and old folks. Maybe take reality TV up a notch. But that said, we don't all relish the limelight. In fact, the Abbe kids never did become movie stars because they fought too much during the screen test. So after their childhood fame, the three of them were clever enough to realize that living outside the glare equated with freedom. Patience even railed against her celebrity very early on when she visited Shirley Temple and her huge doll collection, and a publicist decided it'd be a good idea to have a Patience Abbe doll. And she had a very visceral reaction to that, imagining broken limbs of broken dolls with her own likeness on them, and she put her foot down and said no. And that she knew that her 15 minutes of fame were probably officially up in 1945 when Betty Davis happened upon one of her birthday parties at Laguna Beach and came in and said, "Patience Abbe, I always wondered what happened to you." And she was only 21. But what did happen after that was that she became a reporter in San Francisco. She covered the opening days of the United Nations, marriage and motherhood. She had 2 daughters. She was a very early part of the environmental movement. She was a social worker, a personal assistant, an artist, a sculptor, a music lover, and always a voracious reader. And now she's finishing the story she started as a child, leaving her trail of ideas and ideals. And she insists that the new book will end with ... there's more. So stay tuned and fasten your seatbelts. Thank you.